Why yes, I did make this intro. Thank you for noticing. It sucks. Fuck you. Jake Paul is rapidly becoming one of the most hated people on YouTube. Or if not on YouTube, then certainly in the commentary community. And while Jake has been teetering on that position for the last month or so, with his recent neighborhood drama, it seems to have solidified him as an undesirable to the masses of YouTube. Even to the point where a lot of people are calling for iDubbbz to make a content cop on it. Apparently, it seems people attribute that as a YouTube death sentence. And don't get me wrong, he certainly created this flood himself. From making one of the few videos that I've ever personally physically cringed at,
every day, bro, with the Disney Channel flow,
to being a horrible person to be in a relationship with, according to Alyssa Violet.
Basically together at this point, but without a title. But then he would always have girls over in front of me, and I was just like, what the frick? So then we're not together. But then he would like play all these mind games with me and just be like, yo, like don't get mad.
All while displaying an ego so large that he may very well drown in it. That is, if he's not already in the process.
The neighbors hate me, but I'm still gonna flip and send it.
And that's not even to mention his content, which is, in my opinion, similar to his brother's, abysmal. But even with all this drama surrounding him, personally, I wasn't interested until his real-life neighbors got involved with him. While sure, it can be fun to mock or poke fun at his music video and its atrocious lyrics,
and I just dropped some new merch, and it's selling like a god church.
In real analysis, there's no meat to it. All your criticisms will come down to the basis of your opinion on the song. And while popular opinion may say that it's a horror to the ears, there's probably someone out there who enjoys it, at least on some level. Me personally, however, I would rather listen to Wap Bap. But I bring up the song because it created sort of a schism between Jake Paul and the rest of YouTube. So many people shared their opinions on it, and almost all of it was negative. From PewDiePie,
completely terrible, but really here what JP is doing is a new form of rapping. It's meant to sound like shit.
To the diss god himself, Rice Gum.
He's confusing me. Wait, hey, yo! What's up? Wait, bro, come here. He just said it's Team 10, but wait, like, what number is that?
It's 11.
It's 11, right?
And I mean, just look at the dislike bar in the video. It speaks for itself. And for Jake, it must have been sort of a double-edged sword. While yes, he was being bashed relentlessly by YouTube content creators, it became a catalyst for success in terms of growth of his channel. But still, he knew people hated it enough to give him significant backlash. Probably for the first real time on this site.
Hopefully it doesn't turn out as bad as It's Everyday Bro, but...
I like that song.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it was nothing a little dab wouldn't fix right up.
Dabbing on the haters.
And instead of taking his lumps like he should have for putting such a monstrosity into the world as It's Everyday Bro, he apparently began to flag videos with dissenting opinions, such as Rice Gum's diss track geniusly entitled It's Every Night Sis.
I claim the views on it.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy a new car with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna monetize it?
Yeah. That's lit, right?
Now this may not have much relevance to the viewer, but to the video maker, this is a pretty low thing to do, and it just served to push Jake more into this villain role for most YouTubers. And all of this coming off the heels of being outed as a pretty huge dick by his, at one time, love interest Alyssa Violet.
I just don't understand how someone could do that to someone. I don't. I was so...
This revelation may be the most interesting of all, because it makes Jake dislikable on a more personal level, and since Alyssa and Jake run in the same circles, it obviously must have created some animosity in those circles, as well as with fans who now have to take sides on which person they like more. But the point being that, at that point, Jake is seeming more and more like a villain by the day, and one would think that the constant weight of that must be, at least to some degree, taking its toll. If not mentally, then certainly by feedback from his videos. And then we get to the neighbor situation. So, if you're unaware, which seems unlikely at this point because fucking everybody seems to have talked about it, but if you're unaware, on July 17th, local news station KTLA5 put out a news story on their station reporting that Jake was making his neighborhood a
war zone.
Among other things, the footage showed Jake climbing on top of the KTLA5 news van.
Jake, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't crawl up there.
Why?
Okay.
As well as ending a sentence with the punctuation of a dab.
No, I feel bad for them, for sure. There's nothing we could do, though. The Jake Paulers are the strongest army out there. Dab.
Kinda just takes the breath away, doesn't it? And while yes, you could make a whole video on that situation, and believe me, many have, it's actually the ensuing events after that news story came out that I personally find interesting. So at this point, Jake is hurting pretty badly, not in terms of growth or views, but in terms of his image. He's made a horrible music video that earned him a ton of hate. He's been flagging videos that have any negative opinions on that video. He's been exposed by his ex-love interest for leading her on and being a dick. And now with this news story, he's become public enemy number 1. Not just by the content creators of YouTube or the people on the internet, but by the entire mood of his neighborhood in which he's now living. And while Jake may be quite adept at dabbing away the hate so far, I don't think he quite has the prowess of his older brother. Or, in other words, I think all the criticism is starting to get to him. Or perhaps, somewhat less likely, he does actually feel bad for the way he's been acting. So in his daily vlog number 285, Jesus Christ, on July 19th, entitled Our 1 Month Anniversary Date, Cute, Jake goes around to some of his neighbors' houses and apologizes to them for his antics, as an attempt to put forth an olive branch, or at least portray it as such.
We just want to, come over and greet all of our neighbors and, apologize for all the chaos.
Now, what's interesting is that Jake Paul recorded these conversations with his neighbors, presumably as a way to prove to his audience that he actually did it. However, in the state of California, where Jake lives, recording a conversation without someone's permission is illegal. And according to the reporter who covered the initial story on Jake for the KTLA 5 News, one of his neighbors filed an eavesdropping complaint. And if everything goes through with that complaint, then Jake could be seeing some pretty hefty fines, if not jail time. Now, what I find interesting in this is that this could be a case where Backlash could have potentially drove Jake into some pretty crazy hot water, assuming that the eavesdropping complaint does go through. Now, this is just my theory on it because I don't know what Jake's intentions were, but it makes sense that Jake was trying to dampen criticisms of the YouTube audience and get some heat off of his back with his apology to his neighbors. I think this because he set himself up to be the bigger man in the situation. First, he shows off one of his supposed neighbors going off on some of his fans outside of his house.
No problem with that. But you wanna know something? I will never bring my child to see some scumbags at goddamn midnight. Home is only 2 seconds away.
He shows this clip to defame his neighbors and show that even though he may be doing things like almost starting a roaring fire in a residential neighborhood, his neighbors are dicks too, trying to make it so that he and they are on pretty even footing. And if that's still not enough to put them on even footing, he even holds his own trial for them by stating that they were 100% at fault for loosening the bolts on the Team 10 bus and attempting to kill some of them.
Super dangerous situation, and our neighbors are the ones that did this. This is a picture of it on the tow truck. There's all of this stuff. The Martinez twins were stranded. They didn't know what to do.
You can take those comments as you will, but regardless, it's all done to defame his neighbors. He then admits to his audience that he's at fault as well, so as to seem like the bigger man when he goes to his neighbors and apologizes for his actions.
Look at how many people in this room can touch millions of people's lives on a day-to-day basis. The fact that they are trying to stop that really shows how selfish they are. And again, we're at fault too.
This, to me, all seems like a way to steer his audience back into thinking that he's a good person and get some of the detractors that have been swayed away to come back to his side. And if that was his intention in this case, then I think it's safe to say that the received backlash drove him to this point, which is pretty crazy. Although I highly doubt that he knew recording conversations like that was illegal, if he gets any serious repercussions out of this, then I think it will partly be thanks to YouTube's vilification of him, as I think he went to his neighbors to try and contain some of the backlash that he was getting. Now, don't get me wrong, the blame is totally on Jake's shoulders for being the one who did the illegal action, but if my theory holds any weight, then it would be due to the backlash that he received that he performed that action, which I find quite interesting personally. Anyways, that's the video, guys. Like it, don't like it, let me know. And just to be clear here, I don't think that Jake will go to jail or anything of the sort. I personally think that it will probably be settled out of court, if not just dropped, because Jake's apparently planning on moving out of the area either way.
I went and looked at a piece of property, guys. We're still trying to find a house. We don't want to be homeless. Roll the clip. All right, guys, so we are still looking at houses.
But yeah, I'm sorry if this video was a bit boring in the beginning, but I kind of had to lay the groundwork of why Jake could be getting to the point where he needed something to shift the tide of the ensuing hate that he's been getting, and presumably this apology to his neighbors was his way of doing that. But then again, I could be wrong. Maybe he did it for a different reason. Maybe he really felt guilty about the way he was acting, or was actually trying to be the bigger man in the situation, and totally didn't just record it to make himself look good. But either way, I really don't like Jake's content. I think it's boring and unfunny personally, but this situation with him has been quite interesting in my opinion. Shark pride for life, bruh.